Welcome back, Tribe. Have here a rant from Western women about, immigration and crime and how they're being adversely affected, voting for the liberal policies that they've instituted.
Now I'm going to do something which most journalists and presenters wouldn't dare do. That is going down the route of a particularly taboo story that is close to my heart, shall we say. And I'll tell you why. It's all about crimes and migrants committing crimes. And I'll tell you why this is particularly close to my heart. Because to coin a favourite phrase of the left wing, it has been my lived experience over the past 3 years or so that a lot of crimes happening against women especially seem to be committed by people who aren't from this country. I've been followed home with a man in one of those Afghan kolpal hats chuntering away in some language all the way to my front door. I had to hide in my neighbour's house and pretend I didn't live in my house because he was lurking around outside trying to do indecent things to himself. That's right. I've also had my phone robbed off me by a Roma woman with a scarf on. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Who are these people? Why are we importing all this stuff? I cannot walk down the street where I live anymore without weird men leering at me, making comments. Look, I'm not one of these Me Too movement women. When it was builders wolf whistling from vans, I don't care. Sometimes it brightens up your day. Because what they don't do is they don't get into your personal space. They don't trail you. They don't physically approach you. They don't follow you to your front door. It's a very different sort of more harmless thing, a wolf whistle, than some of the stuff
But remember the message in the United States was don't even whistle at me. That's abuse. That's the patriarchy. That's objectifying me. I'm more than just my body. Now all of a sudden, they want the good old days back when they're getting whistled at by construction workers instead of migrants that are carrying like buckets of acid or machetes or following them into their homes or actually putting their hands on them and being deeply inappropriate in groups where you're going to be very scared as a woman because it's not just one man. You're outnumbered by 3, 4, 5, 6 at a time now. So what are you going to do? And then they threaten your life and nobody's going to help you. It's too woke to even say the color of their skin or their background, ethnicity. You just have to say you were attacked by a group of men. Well, what group of men? And how much of this percentage of men commit these percentages of the crimes? Well, when you actually dig down into the statistics, it's actually horrendous. We're letting people into countries they don't deserve to be in. There's nothing wrong with immigration when it's controlled. There's nothing wrong with importing people with high skills that are needed. Scientists, engineers, doctors, aviation experts, physicists. We want the bright and the ones working on research that's cutting edge with the best ideas. Every nation looks for those people. Instead, we've imported massive amounts of people that come from mud huts and still living on roofs made of pine straw. And then you're wondering why they fail to assimilate in these societies. And the parallel societies pop up because you imported so many so fast without any control, without any plan, that all of a sudden, there's no need to learn this language or abide by these rules because we've created our own little whatever version of where we came from. Ta-da! You have the migrant problem the EU is currently dealing with, and America is already importing millions as well. They have their own open border issue. But if you say, hey, we're going a little bit in the wrong direction, it's too fast, too many, all at once, we don't have the resources, the time, or the programs instituted to help these people assimilate into our society, adopt our culture, and become one of us. They never become one of us. They just get relegated to the outskirts of society where they create their own ghettos and then crime and then gun battles and then bombs and then like horrendous crimes start happening and everybody's like, oh, how could this happen? Well, yeah, your policy was a failure from the get-go. We're not blaming the migrants directly. We're blaming the policies that allowed people to immigrate that shouldn't have been qualified to immigrate in these countries in the first place. Skilled immigration is a good thing. Every country wants it. It's what made America so great. We're importing the world's brightest, best, smartest scientists. They look at the society we created, before everything started turning to shit. But the idea did work until we threw away our value system.
I'm being subjected to now. And some of the stuff, my best mate who lives around the corner, again, her lived experience. Also, guess what? A woman with long blonde hair. She has 4 teenage daughters. All of them now have at some point been sexually assaulted. They have been groped. They have been followed. They are scared living in London. What is going on? So I am going to keep talking about this. I don't care if people turn around and goes, you're a racist, because my safety and the safety of women in this country is paramount. That is way more important than offending certain communities who, quite frankly, have men with medieval values when it comes to women. And I ain't standing for it. So I'm going to keep on this subject. Now, one thing I think we need to do in this country is publish statistics on crime by nationality. We don't do it. Apparently, we don't keep them. We're too lily-livered. Oh, we keep statistics on the victims of crime by nationality. So we can turn around and go, oh, look, it's all poor people who are not from here being targeted. What about the fact that actually, if you look on, there's this brilliant website about organised crime around the world. The contributors to that are people like the CIA, Interpol, Europol, and they've got all the stats of who's committing crime where in what countries. It's an amazing deep dive. You can go onto this map and zoom in on a particular nation that explains all the sort of trends and patterns. About 90% of our organised crime was being committed by Albanians. I mean, for crying out loud, what are we importing? Now, countries that do actually publish their statistics, Scandinavian countries, I've got some of them here. And so I want to sort of run you through a bit of this. Now, Denmark increased its level of non-Western born immigrants between 2020 and 2023 by a staggering 158%. 158%.
How did that work out?
At the same time, crime went up by 31%. Is there a correlation? Well, sex offences went up by 248%. And when you look at their league tables, the vast majority of those sexual offences are being committed by men who were not born in Sweden. They weren't even born in European countries.
Shocker.
Western countries. That was Denmark, sorry. Now, Sweden, in that same period, their level of non-Western immigration went up by 86%. Overall crime went up by 24%. Is there a correlation? Well, I don't know. Rape went up by 359%. Even the Prime Minister of Sweden has turned around and said, you know, perhaps we were a bit naive when it came to our immigration policy. So there you go. These countries do publish
So your communities are becoming unsafe. Massive amounts of foreigners are moving in. They're getting government benefits to not work. A lot of them are taking advantage of the easy money. Sure, there's some hardworking ones, but a lot of them aren't. And they're causing problems because the statistics bear it out. And you're being told, keep voting left. You're being told that your government cares about you, that you're not being left behind, that your vote matters, and that politicians are thinking about you and your children. And here's what's happening to you and your children. There's a horrendous article I thought about covering, but it'll get completely banned, where a 13-year-old Austrian girl flees her community after being, and how do you say this, assaulted by 17 migrants. And by the way, this was happening repeatedly. 17 migrants. They threatened to end her life, and if she said anything to anybody, and she did go to the police numerous times, it took her mother getting the Facebook post and social media posts of these boys and going to the police with all this proof for the investigation to start again. Imagine you're living in your nice little community. Politicians open up your borders with no checks, just letting mass migrants in. And you are one of the victims now whose daughter has just been assaulted by 17 of these people repeatedly. And you're forced to move out of your community for fear of reprisal by one of these people. These are problems that could have been avoided. This is what's pissing people off. And you're considered racist for talking about it, just like she said. You're considered a far-right extremist, just like she said. It's common sense. We want secure borders. We want safe communities. We want the people that are coming into this country to be verified by the government, to be thoroughly checked, and to be on some sort of program where they'll assimilate inside society and become one of us. That's all we're asking for. Nothing racist about that. You shouldn't get a blank check and just walk in here just because you're different, just because you're coming from an outside country. In Europe, there's plenty of videos of people on the boats from Africa literally touching down on Greece or Italy, and in the middle, right before they get off the boat, right before they're about to land, they're just tossing all their paperwork, their passports, any identification, and then lying and saying like, yeah, I'm 16 years old. I'm 14 years old. The guy's like 22, 23. It's mostly men. Where are the women and children? That's another question we're all asking. It's supposed to be like, oh, these poor migrants, these refugees, war-torn areas. My God, yes, Europe, we have more. We have excess. Let's let them in. Okay, cool story. Why is it only men? Where are the women and children? That's what's weird. You're not allowed to ask these questions.
League tables of who's committing crimes by nationality. And believe me, it makes for stark reading. We need to do that in this country, because if we're not honest with ourselves and the situation we're in, people like me are at risk. When I get the tube home to West London from East London, I am at risk. And I don't want to live in a country that doesn't value my safety enough to have this conversation. Now, a country that might find that this is soon going to be in train is Ireland, because they had 3.8 million as a population. That's staggeringly gone up to 5.3 million in just a matter of years because of, yep, you guessed it, loads of inward migration, a 39% increase in non-Western migrants. The Irish, it seems to me, are already flexing their muscles, the Irish public, and getting pretty annoyed at some of the tent cities popping up. And believe you me, if there's going to be an insurrection on this issue anywhere, I reckon it'll be Ireland. So let's cross over now and speak.
Yeah, that's for the West, because the Irish still have a little bit of balls left, although they're barely clinging on. I would say if there was ever an insurrection, it would be in Eastern Europe. Come to Bulgaria, come to Romania, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, all the countries basically in the Balkans and Eastern Europe. Good luck. It's just crazy to see how quickly Western Europe has degenerated, where the conversation now in Eastern Europe is we're actually doing better when it comes to crime and safety. Our societies are cleaner now. That was unheard of, man. Like 1990s, early 2000s, it was all out escape from Eastern Europe, move abroad, move to America, move to Western Europe. Life there is just incomparable. They were so far ahead. Nowadays, there's nothing but conversation from all the diaspora that's talking about coming back into their home countries. Like people are going temporarily now, not to start a new life, just work, send money home, or work enough to get experience and then go back home and start your own business. The amount of diaspora that has returned or is planning to return in these countries, or even my own family, just visited a few weeks ago. I have a cousin that I haven't seen him since I was a little boy. They visited for the first time. He is now 50-something years old. He came with his children. He's been gone from Romania since he was 12 years old, so he remembers what life was like, communism days and the bread lines and all the horrific shit that you grew up in during that, Iron Curtain period. When they came back just a few weeks ago, jaw was on the floor. He was shocked. Unrecognizable. That's the word everybody uses. It's unrecognizable. I don't even know where I am anymore. Nothing is the same. Everything is at your fingertips. The food is amazing. It's clean here. There's no homeless people. You feel safe. It's a complete departure from the vivid memories that he had as a little kid, and the crime, the destitution, the watching over your shoulder from the secret police, food lines, never having enough, the power constantly going out. Basic services like that would cut in and out. I mean, people have no idea what communism's like. It's crazy that here in the West, we're fighting for communist policies, yet Eastern Europeans know full well, having lived through it, what a shitty system that is to implement, and are now the staunchest critics of it. Talk to Eastern Europeans about going back to communism. They'll laugh on your face. Absolutely not. Southeastern Europe's probably going to be the last place for democracy, and let's see if it crumbles under the weight of the wokeness of the West.
To the president of the Irish Freedom Party, Herman Kelly, and get his thoughts on this. Herman, how are you doing?
Hello, Alex. Great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you.
It is very brave of you to talk about this, because we both know it's very un-PC to do so. But I believe it's more important to be factually correct than to be politically correct, because the lives of people, like I have 4 daughters, and I can tell you for myself, a number of years ago, 2 miles from my home here in County Louth in Ireland, a convicted rapist, a guy called, Roman Crock. He was convicted of attempted rape of a 14-year-old girl in Derby a number of years ago. And when he came out of jail, I think he was in jail for a year and a half, where did he come? He came to Dunleer in County Louth because his mother had been given a free social house in the middle of the town. A convicted rapist. And of course, when he arrived, there was a huge increase in burglaries in the area until he was caught, until a number of neighbours, and actually the local police did a very good job, caught the guy. He got 8 months in jail. They got so much hassle out locally that he decided once he got out of jail, he was leaving Ireland completely. But there has been a huge increase in sex assault, in crime over the last number of years. For example, in 2022, there were 12 women murdered in Ireland. 5 of those were murdered by non-national. Given that 22% of the population are non-national, that's a very high percentage. So I would say it's not just correlation. I would move towards that there's actually a causal link between a large number of unvetted males into a country and an increase in crime.
Now, we know for certain that there are foreign gangs, and it's strange, actually. The countries are committing crimes in various other countries via foreign gangs are sort of particular to particular countries. In the UK, it's largely been Albanian gangs. In other countries, it might be Turkish gangs, so on and so forth. Mexican gangs, if you're looking at America. But it's very clear that, the international things like the drugs trade is international, human trafficking is international, sex trafficking, so on and so forth. And there are various nations who are, pulling strings and levers, and these are big international events. And that, we certainly need to control borders and know who's coming in. So we don't want to import organised crime. The thing that it seems to me that we're still not talking about, and this is despite the exposure of grooming gangs in this country. Every time I read the newspaper now and I follow the news across Europe, there seems to have been a rape gang operating in Brussels or operating in Paris. The amount of young girls now who seem to be being raped by, it's actually called the lover boy technique, I think. Usually Somalian gangs, not always, North African gangs as well. The amount of young girls now falling victim to gang rape. Gang rape, that is one of the most horrific things that can happen to a little girl. And almost every single time, these gangs are coming from countries who, to put it in a mild manner, don't share our cultural values.
I think people have to begin to be honest and call it what it is. Because as you say, if we look at the ethnicity and culture and religion, let's talk what it is. It's a Muslim, Islamic religion of these people. They're normally Algerian, Pakistani, Somalian, almost without exception, all across England and various other countries as well. And it's rape jihad is what is going on. It is the damage to young girls and the humiliation of men within their culture as well, to come in, to dominate and say, we're in charge now. That's what it's about.
Now, let's talk a bit, and I always have to do sort of disclaimer, little asterisks, and say, clearly not all Muslim men behave like this. But I think you are absolutely right in pointing out the common denominator with those countries that we are listing is that religion, or some of the cultural practices connected to that religion. I mean, let's not forget women in Iran aren't exactly having a lovely time, and the Taliban happily lob rocks at women accused of adultery and so forth. I mean, it's not exactly brand new information to people to say a lot of Muslim countries treat women pretty appallingly. But let's look at what's going on in Ireland now, because, we think we've got a problem here in the UK when it comes to illegal immigration, people coming over on boats. In Ireland, some of the scenes you're seeing in Dublin with these tent cities are absolutely out of control.
And that is what you're seeing in the tent cities is only the tip of the iceberg, because that's people living on the street. But the really serious problem is, one is a huge lack of housing, which has come about, and two is the increase in criminality, serious criminality. Now, between 2022 and 2023,
we just lost Herman then. I wanted to know what happened between 2022.
Almost at 50%. In 1 year, there was almost a 50% increase in murder in Ireland. So there was a 50% increase in the murder rate. I think it went up from 25 to 47 in 1 year. When you have a very sharp increase in the number of unvetted males, you don't know these people coming in, you don't know their name, you don't know who they are, you don't know where they're from, you don't know if they have a criminal record. Now, would you believe that 85% of people who apply for asylum in Ireland at Dublin Airport, 85% claim that they've lost their passport between getting on the plane and getting off at Dublin Airport. So they're coming into the country lying to us. And so they've already lied to us. And you know what? You have a large number of young males from any culture with nothing to do, hanging around all day, maybe drinking, etc. There's going to be trouble. And in Ireland, look, we've got to stop this practice of naivety or self-deception. We can see all across Europe. Sweden, you mentioned there.
Yeah.
Swedish TV did research there a number of years ago. They found out that 58% of all sex assault and rape was done by non-Swedish men who had arrived within the country within the last 5 years.
That's about 58%. That is sort of knocking up to about 2/3 of rapes have happened to men who've turned up in the last 5 years. That is sick. Yeah. These women should be suing the blimmin' government.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Swedish government...
they're not suing, though. They're voting for these policies. This is what the liberal savior complex and identity politics is how we got here in the first place. And women overwhelmingly vote left. And this is is what you get. Open borders, unvetted males coming in, the destabilization of societies that were once safe, the pinnacle of human civilization now degrading all around you. The bridges are falling apart. The roads are full of potholes. Our kids are getting dumber in schools. The social programs that made even the weakest among us strong are all disappearing. The rich have gotten richer. The middle class has disappeared. We've had the largest wealth transfers from the middle class upwards since human history these past few years with the pandemic. Politicians don't care about us. They live behind gated communities. Until it starts affecting them personally, they won't do anything about it. And even if it does, they're in the pockets of corporations because of, in America, we call it lobbying, but it's just outright buying politicians. It should be illegal. It's corruption is what it is. So yeah, we have a system here in the West where we can legally bribe our politicians, and the ones with the most influence are, of course, multinational corporations. They don't have a home. They don't care. They plant their headquarters in the cheapest tax havens and suck up all the profit, all the resources, anything good about the countries they operate in with no regards to the society. And you wonder why we have this disconnect between corporations' needs and wants and the citizens' needs and wants. And in the middle is the government, the arm, the logistical side of running society. Well, of course, people have no power. Corporations do. People have very little influence. Corporations do. You see what's happening all around the world if you're one of the people that talks against the haves versus the have-nots. Not team red or blue, guys. It's whether you got money in your pocket or you don't. At the tippy top, their kids go to the same schools. I keep telling you guys, they have the same fundraisers. The same team backs them. The men in suits, they come by with fat stacks of cash, power, influence, promises. These are just puppets. You're voting for a popularity contest that actually does nothing. Your life will continuously get worse, as it has for generations. Whether it's red or blue, shit has gotten worse. If you look back on a long enough time frame, inflation has been eating away your earning potential for decades, for before you were even born. If you're listening to this video, before you were even born, the system was broken. It's not something new. It's not that if you pick team red, things will get better. Or you pick team blue, things will get better. No one's taking your rights away. Nobody's going to promise you and give you the better future. That's all this shit has already evaporated. The American dream has been dead before you were born. Your future has been stolen from you. And then they pass these laws and these acts that are just spitting in your face. Citizens United basically divided citizens and gave corporations ultimate power, bribery, unlimited amounts, dark pool, super PACs, shit like that. It's mind-blowing. America was sold out. Then they pass other shit like the Patriot Act, another spit in your face, takes away your rights. You can be labeled a terrorist, indefinitely held. Isn't that crazy? Your amendment rights, they don't matter. Slap a label on you. Your rights disappear. If you haven't been paying attention, my friend, it's going to get a lot worse for you. I'm just curious what some of the comments say. I don't even need to hear the rest of this because anybody with half a brain that's been paying attention has been shouting for the rooftops, but you're labeled a racist or a conspiracy theorist or a nut job for just seeing the truth. Keep your eyes closed. Follow the government. Everything they say is true. I am a nut job. Don't listen to me. My opinion is just my opinion. I am incorrect. I am not an expert on any of the subjects I talk about. This is purely my opinion. I meant to offend nobody out in the internet. That's your disclaimer. Some of the comments say there's nothing racist about it. Racism is discrimination based on skin color. Calling out criminals and wanting them out has nothing to do with race. I'm a female, a mother of my 4 adult daughters. I have 1 granddaughter. I have my mother. I have 3 sisters. I have lots of nieces and aunties. I worry for all of us across the UK. Female safety has been sacrificed for the sake of diversity. Enough is enough. It says our children and grandchildren are no longer safe in their own country. Just look at the grooming gangs. Says I'm African, and unfortunately I have to agree with you. Not everyone, but criminals have realized the UK is very lenient on crime, and that's Western Europe in general. It doesn't take a genius to realize that the soft on crime policies and a revolving door of rehabilitation is just going to attract the worst of the worst. Because you can go commit crimes, try to get ahead by stealing, by robbing, by murdering and all that stuff, and you'll get slaps on the wrist. It's just a certain group of people taking advantage, and not by skin color, not by country, mindset. If you're a criminal, Western Europe is the perfect place to go. Their penalties are a complete joke. Anyways, curious what everybody else is thinking on this topic. It's a bit of an inflammatory one for obvious reason. People are going to assume you're racist or you're a bigot somehow by noticing what's happening in society and that people aren't integrating as they should, as we all expected, that mass migration or diversity has failed, at least in its current form, with this style of implementation. And, nobody wants to admit that we made a mistake. Now the conversation's finally being had that maybe this wasn't the correct move. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'll see you on the next one.